So it's a new month, and something that I'm really enjoying, something I enjoyed doing last month was working with a theme for the whole month as a way to explore it a little deeper for myself. And how sticking with something for a while lets you get into it more, lets you understand it more, lets you get more creative about it. And also, I think it's useful at the level of our bodies because patterns don't just change overnight. And also sometimes when we ourselves are consciously in a practice for a consistent amount of time, then we kind of have like some little click or some aha or some deeper understanding that we can actually move forward with, which sometimes we don't get if it's a new theme every class and it's always changing. And there's might be things that stick, but it's not like a course. It's not something that
Yeah.
takes us deeper. Right. So that's something I'm enjoying doing, and I think we'll stick with that for a while. So I decided for this month I wanted to end out the year, being our last calendar month, and focus on feet and building up from our foundations. Because something that I spot a lot in the yoga classes I teach in person, at least, is people are not connected to their feet. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of folks with issues in other areas of their body, we can just say, that are not necessarily feet, but that are absolutely related to what's going on in their feet.
Yeah.
And I know at least a few people in my groups would very likely benefit from a little footwork. So I actually want to propose that we all get some balls at some point. We don't need them today. Um,
Okay.
yeah, don't need them today because some people might not have them in our community yet. But whether it's tennis balls, these are lacrosse balls. I like lacrosse balls personally because they have a good density. Tennis balls are still a little squishy. These you can't quite squish into, but there's like a little bit of give. Um, you know,
More than the yoga balls?
I think sometimes the yoga balls, I think they're a little, I don't know. It depends on which brand because I've used all types. I've
Yeah.
used some that are like way too squishy and then some that are like also very similar to this. But I think
Yeah.
these are probably a little cheaper than the yoga balls because
Oh
they're for
yeah.
lacrosse. Because
Yeah.
yeah, they're
And
basically
maybe
yoga balls, but not branded as such. So I
and maybe
recommend we
they're
get
made a little tougher to, take the hitting they take.
for the yoga
You know,
balls.
well, no, for the lacrosse balls.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. They don't hit, they throw, huh?
right, yeah. So it needs that like that weight to be able to like swing through the air. So I would recommend we all get those because I love myofascial release. It's one of my things, and these are amazing tools for that. So I've been using these in the gym recently, and I love it. It feels so good to actually incorporate not just stretching and yoga postures and breathing into my warm-ups, but also some myofascial release. So try and get your hands on some of those at least by next week so that we can dive into that. So
Do
if
you
you already
like the
have
big
some.
ones?
Sorry?
Do you like the big ones? The big
These, I
like
like these size. Yeah, I mean, I've used smaller ones, but I don't love them. Which ones are you talking about? I would
you mean
probably go for the medium size or the smaller one, personally. Is
oh yeah, you know what?
that a lacrosse
Uh,
ball?
it might be because it's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So like that bigger one, maybe you use for a different area, right? It just helps you spread out the surface area. But realistically, I like being able to go to like a pressure point and work there.
Yeah.
But today, even without our balls in hand, we can start with some massage of the foot. So find any position that you can access one of your feet. And where we'll start is just warming up the whole tissue of the foot. So giving it a massage. And it's almost like, when you make your bed and you want to get the wrinkles out, and you kind of have to like smooth stuff out. Like imagine you're kind of doing a bit of that. Like you're smoothing out any potential wrinkles, not in the skin, but in the fascia, so in the connective tissue. And as you do that, you'll start to notice areas of tension that you can press into, you can squeeze, you can massage, just see what feels good. Because part of how, healing works and part of how myofascial release works too is it's very connected to our nervous system and our nervous system as a prediction system. So our nervous system is almost constantly trying to use the past to predict the future, or to predict, potential outcomes. whether or not we notice that's what it's doing. And the thing is, our fascia, being so closely related to our nervous system, is also just trying to do its best predictions. And so if our posture is one certain way, then it's going to get the information over time that I need to be ready for that. I need to be ready to be in this certain pose where I have shoes and my toes aren't going to move. And I need to be able to slouch for hours a day staring at a screen. So I just need to adapt. And it will actually take time and new information for that to change. So part of that new information is actually creating a sense of openness and creating a sense of relaxation and bliss. So from here, we'll focus on each toe. So what you'll practice is you can actually grab the foot with your left hand, and with your right hand, grab onto the pinky toe and just practice making little circles. And here, as we do this, practice deepening your breath to stay conscious with the sensations you notice. Then circles in opposite direction at any point. And also, it doesn't just need to be circles. Like, explore the edges of that circle. Like, for me, when I get my pinky toe out there, I'm like, ooh, there's an interesting little bit of tension, some anti-shoe tension. And then feel for like milking the pinky toe. So like you're lengthening it forwards, away from the root. Grab onto the ring toe, if that's what we can call it. So once again, grabbing the foot with the left hand, and then use your right hand to make circles with the toe. Loosening up the fascia, loosening up connective tissue on top and bottom of toe. Circles in opposite direction at any point. And if you find any spot that you want to just have pressure held consistently, feel free to just hold pressure on one spot. Even our toes have little pressure points. Moving on to the next toe. Start working your middle toe. And here, since the middle toe is a bit longer, you can either grab onto the root of the toe and move from there, or you can grab onto like the second phalange and make little circles from there. In fact, over time, the more both of those joints get some attention, the better it will be. And I remember back at Davana Yoga, actually, gosh, I can't remember her name, but it was one teacher. She taught a class on toes once, and she wanted us to try and move our middle toe, and everybody's middle toe was just dead. Like nobody had any neurological connection to their middle toe. So the middle toe is one that's interesting because it is often so scrunched up amongst the other toes that we just totally lose connection. But being the middle toe, it also actually plays an important little role in our stability of the center of the foot. So there's no connection there. It's telling us there's no connection through the sole, the center of the foot, and we're just kind of going to end up on one side or the other of the foot. Moving on to our pointer toe. Do you remember her name, Fred? She was a Mexican teacher. And she didn't teach all the time, but she would fill in sometimes. And she was so sweet.
Was she young or
She was no, she was I want to say around Anna's age, maybe, or maybe a bit younger, but she wasn't
not,
like.
was she Monte Carmen?
No,
Uh,
no, not Monte Carmen.
I don't remember, but I know we did. Anna had, well, she didn't try it too much because it was frustrating. Piano toes.
Oh,
Oh my God. But you know, they'll say even if you have to use your fingers for a while, go ahead and do it because eventually it will do it. But you know, you're all up and then one down at a time, then one up back. She can do it.
Well, with practice, right? Big toe.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the thing with practice. And I think that's why, like I said, I want to focus on this for this month, because by the end of this month, by just doing stuff like this, self-massage, myofascial release, and then integrating that even just with a few yoga poses to try and consciously be in a pose while still connected to our feet, It
Yeah.
can drastically change a lot of things. So here with the big toe, you know, once again, you're making either circles or you're kind of milking it, and you're just searching for areas of tension. And something that you can start to note, if there's any joint that kind of like, I'll just use my wrist as an example. If there's any joint that like, you know, tips to one side, so like my big toe kind of does that. It kind of looks like a little bit. There's tension here because it's pulling it. So, you know, any area of any of the joints you can see, right? Because often once we've worn shoes or certain joints, maybe if they were too long, they kind of start to bend. When they bend, there's a chronic tension in that crux, in that corner. And so we'll start to work through those points as well. Okay, and then now just straighten out both toes, both legs. And from here, I just want you to flex your feet back towards your shins. And you might notice that the foot you just worked on is a little more flexible, or you feel like you can actually spread the toes more. So try and spread the toes out as well. Like I can notice a huge difference. And if I try and flex back, it actually flexes back a little bit more than the other one. Okay, and then point your toes forward. And flex toes back. And now let's give some love to the right foot. So first, just massage into the whole foot. Feeling like you're warming up tissues, you're smoothing out any wrinkles or any tensions, you're trying to bring bliss. You're bringing new blood flow. You're moving out old, stagnant, stuck blood that's maybe just pooling up in your feet because they're so far from your heart. And also, as you caress your foot, feel for noticing where there may be areas of more tension, or even like little pressure points that you can notice, trigger points. From here, you can grab the foot with right hand, start to make circles with the pinky toe. Or you can milk it, or you can look for those angles where the toe maybe turns and see if by massaging around that area where there's a curve or where there's an angle, if you notice a little extra tension. Moving on to the next toe. And something I'd like to practice here too is like spreading out the toes. So we would say active feet or active toes. So spread them and then you work whichever toe you're working. So like the other toes aren't just like dead and waiting for their turn. They're actually also actively stretching because that helps stretch open the tissues, the fascia, the muscles of the feet. Plus, your foot's able to be in that open, active position and have one of its toes very mobile.
This one's harder for me because I have a bunion. So that big toe has been pushing. And so I can't get it to, oh yeah, it's stuck to the next toe. And in fact, I wore spacers last night and I fell asleep in them. But I can separate. No, it's so strong pulling, you know, that
so
way.
In that case, feel like, you know, not just the tip of the toe, feel your way all the way down to like the very first phalange. And then, you know, maybe even beyond that, right? And if you squeeze in, you might notice some tension in those cases.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next toe, middle toe.
Yeah, I was even thinking about just getting I've seen those, you know, they're pretty strong. It's a single divider, you know, to pull the big toe or straighten it out.
Yeah.
And I don't know. One idea would be almost, would that be a crutch? It might be better just for me to pull on it back, back and forth,
Right.
rather than having it held
Right.
by this band. I don't know. Maybe I'll try it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things. One is like there's like our structures have become the way they are because of compensation. So like because of having to compensate for like say a shoe pushing on them, right? And so then
Yeah.
they adapted a certain structure. Obviously, if we put another structure in place that then tries to push it the opposite direction, it can it's new information. Let's move on to the next toe. So pointer toe, index toe. It can try and give it new information, which may over time create a new pattern. But there is very much to be said for active movement. So like active stretching, active exercise. Like, if we could just sit around all day and get a six pack, I'm sure most people would try and do it. But there's, our body is built from muscles. And I even remember Anna actually saying that muscles move joints, and that has always stuck with me of like, if there's a problem in a joint or if there's, even we think structurally, like somebody has a malformation between, of a certain area, it's like, well, actually the muscles move those areas. So depending on how you work with those muscles, you can actually change the structures, which is a little bit different than just passively sitting with a thing pushing up against it in the opposite way. Both I think can be useful, but I think one alone, if I had to choose one alone, I would choose the active personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, big toe. It's kind of like the difference, and this isn't a judgment call. It's just, something that's that I felt in my body is like for me, like certain times if I do a yin yoga practice, I'm like peeling myself out of pigeon. And and my hips are like falling apart because it's just been like kind of overstretched in this new pattern that's very passive, and not a lot of heat built up, right? Because there's maybe a few cat cows. It's not a ton of warming up, right? It's just like, boom, okay, now we're in this really deep pose for 3 minutes or whatever. Whereas forest yoga, we will often spend long times in poses, but we're hot. And for me, like that has allowed me to access new levels of both strength and flexibility, but also just stability in my joints. Like I'm not like collapsing into a joint because I'm using that strength, that activity to be in that place. So at least in my body, that feels nice.
Yeah, that
Like,
makes sense.
like I can still spend a long time in pigeon, but I prefer to do it after my hips are already warm. And and being conscious of, well, what's going on in my feet and what's going on in both feet, in pigeon, which there's also a benefit to just kind of resting into a pose, from a yogic perspective. So neither way is necessarily right.
I was gonna schedule surgery. All I had to do was pick a date to have that bunion off, and then because I had a belief that it would help with my balance, like in tree pose. And so I just before I was leaving, I mentioned it to Anna, and Anna went, wait a minute. Does it hurt? Does your bunion hurt? And I went, well, no. And said, well, it's not going to help you with your balance. And the only really reason to do it is pain. Otherwise, it's just cosmetic surgery. Like, do you remember Gretchen, the cat lady that always came late?
Yes.
Well, she had them both done, but recovery is a long time. And so Anna said, you don't want to do it just for looks and be, out of your practice that long. So don't do it.
Yeah. From here, stretch both feet forward again. Flex your toes back towards your shin. I can notice mine are pretty equal now, and then aim to spread out the toes, and you'll see which foot gets a little more spread or which toes get a little more spread. you know, I can still see my middle toe and my pointer toe are still pretty hugged together, but it's a lot easier for me to access it. Actually, I'm seeing on the left side than on the right side. So that will have me curious how that travels up my foot and into my hips, how that ability to connect fully to the foot will affect my posture. So let's come up to standing just to try on our new feet for a few poses, with the intention of spreading out the toes and then landing the toes. So our first pose, legs wide apart, we're standing forward bend straddle. So here, first spread your toes out as much as you can, plant them down. Then connect as much of your foot sole to the floor as you can. And then once you have that, then forward bend. Here, instead of focusing on how deep your torso can go, focus more on how much of your foot can stay connected to the floor, pressing downwards. And how you can actually press down through each toe. Bring your torso up, keeping connected to the feet. And here, we just moved out of jaw work, but I want to work with this a little bit. So just massage here at the base of the jaw while staying connected to your feet, pressing your feet down, spreading your toes, pressing toes into the floor. And there's a reason that we're doing this, and it's that if you can remember how you just felt in your forward bend or how deep you were able to go, oftentimes just by massaging this area of the jaw, you'll be able to access a little more depth with a little more freedom. So go ahead and release your hands and then just do another forward bend. Just notice how it feels now. Here, notice which foot feels like it's easier to connect to the floor. Press both feet as equally as you can into the floor. Slowly bring your torso up. Horse stance. Turn your heels in, toes point out. And then lower knees, bend knees, lower hips. From here, once again, lift your toes, spread your toes as much as you can, land your toes down to the mat, and then feel for pressing your toes into the floor. If you want back traction, bring the heels of your hand close to the hips and then straighten the arms. Over the course of this month, we'll start practicing creating a map of the foot. So right now, bring your attention into the left foot and notice what areas feel like they can connect down the floor, pressing down, and what areas are a little more difficult to connect to. Then bring your observation over to the right foot. Feel for which areas struggle to press down, struggle to stay connected. That will tell us a lot about what's going on further up the body. Slowly straighten the legs. Come into a warrior two position with the legs, with the left foot pointing towards the front of the mat or side of the mat, and the right foot parallel to the back edge. Bend the left knee, relax the arms completely. Here in this pose, once again, feel for spreading the toes of both feet, landing toes, and then especially press the left big toe into the floor. There's nerves connecting both big toes with our glutes. So the more you press your left big toe into the floor, you should feel your left glutes lighting up. Now bring your attention to right big toe. Press right big toe into the floor, and you will also feel potentially your right glute lighting up. Allow your deep breath to hold you as you move into greater intensity and into making changes in old patterns. Triangle, straighten out the left leg. If you want, you can heel to the right foot in once or twice. Left hand down onto the shin, ankle, block, anywhere that feels good. Right arm goes straight out. Here, bring your attention back into the left foot and notice what areas in this pose feel like you can access them more easily. Whichever area feels like a potential dead zone or just more difficult to connect down to the floor, press that area downwards. And then inhale, lift your ribs a little bit just to notice how that little change in your foot creates a whole systemic difference. Lunge, bring hands down on either side of left foot, pick up the right heel and lower the right knee down. Keep the back toes tucked under, and then inhale, reach your arms up. For this lunge, have your chest aligned over the back knee. So instead of being like way forwards, trying to line like one big column. And from there, feel for pressing the toes of the right foot down, and then lifting and spreading left toes, pressing toes of the left foot down. It's a totally different way to be in lunge, to be connected to your feet, than to just be floating your arms up. As you press both legs down, inhale, reach your arms up. Bring your hands down. Shift your hips back for half splits. You can either, if you want to stretch through the top of the foot and the ankle, reach the foot toes down towards the floor. Or if you want to stretch hamstrings a little more, feel for toes going up to ceiling and your back staying as flat as you can. Here, once again, practice spreading the toes, whether they're up or down. And then exhale, move your left femur towards the left hip socket, like you're sucking it in. To come out of the pose, left foot down on the floor, hands on the floor. Step into downward facing dog. In down dog, lift one foot, spread the toes, and plant the foot. Then pick up the other foot, spread the toes as much as you can, and plant that foot. From there, try and reach your heels towards one another first, with toes planted on the ground. Inhale, lift your ribs out of your shoulders. Exhale, now reach your heels towards the floor. Notice how there might be a little more feeling of connection through the left foot, because it's gotten a little more attention already. Warrior 2, focus on the legs. Inhale, right foot forward between the hands, come to a Warrior 2 position. Lift and spread the toes of both feet and then plant toes down. From here, start to press the right big toe strongly downwards. Notice how that starts to create a little more strength and intensity going on in the right leg. Now press down through left big toe. Inhale and feel your rib cage lifting up away from your hips that are now strong and stable. Exhale, roll your shoulders back and relax your arms down. Feel for keeping an openness in your heart and a strength in your legs. Triangle. Straighten the right leg, heel toe left foot in, once or twice. And then right hand comes down to any place along the right foot, right leg, right ankle, shin, thigh, forward block, and left arm up. Here, bring your attention to the left foot first, back foot. What areas are still difficult to access? And are they the same? Are you starting to notice a pattern? You press that area down and then inhale, lengthen your ribs away from the left hip. Exhale, continue to press down through that area and reach up through left hand. Now bring your awareness more into right foot. Where are the areas where the map is a little more foggy of feeling your foot? Try and connect fully to as many toes and as much of the surface of the sole of the foot as you can. Lunge, bend the right knee, hands down to the mat on either side of right foot. Pick up the left heel and then lower the left knee down. Keep left toes tucked under. And inhale, reach arms up. Torso is aligned above the back knee. Start to press the ball of the left foot towards the floor, and you'll feel a little more stretch through the left toes. You also might feel a little more opening in the front of the hip. Inhale, reach the left side of ribs up away from the left hip. Exhale, press your right shin bone towards the ankle and towards the floor. Connect to your toes in both feet. Part of the intention of working with our feet as we are in this last month of the year is to be able to move forwards with more clarity and a more grounded sense. Grounding actually comes from pressing down so that the earth can press equally in opposite and for reaction back up. Hands down to the mat. Step into downward facing dog. So with that notion, this law of physics that for every reaction, there's equal and opposite action, feel for pressing your hands into the floor, grounding through your hands. As much of your fingers, your hands, and even the base of the wrist as you can. Notice how that allows you to lift your chest away from your elbows. Then feel for pressing through your toes, then reaching your heels downwards. It's okay if they don't touch, but you're still reaching. From here, imagine that you were ripping your hands and feet towards the four corners of your mat. So left foot is moving towards left back edge of mat. Right foot moves towards back right edge of mat. Right hand moves towards right front edge. Left hand moves towards left front edge. Like you're creating a big X without being able to move. Slowly lower knees down. Have your toes tucked under, and then walk your hands back, only to the point that feels okay to stretch through your toes. So you may stay here, and you may actually pick up the knees and come into a squat on the toes. So it depends on how your ankles, how your toes are doing. Okay. Otherwise, you still have hands and maybe even knees still on the mat. in wherever you are, feel for, it's like pressing your toes down as if you're lifting your heels up. So if you can, float the knees off the mat, and then feel for pressing the toes down to lift the heels back, like they're shifting towards the back of your mat, and then shifting your knees forwards. So knees shift back and knees shift forwards. You'll get a stretch through your toes as you do this. Then knees down to the mat. Bring your feet forwards into a Baddha Konasana pose. The soles of the feet are together. For Baddha Konasana, forward bend. Hands forwards. And here, instead of just letting your feet hang out or open up like a book, feel for connecting big toe to big toe, pointer toe to pointer toe, middle toe to middle toe, ring toe to ring toe, little toe to little toe if you can. And then the ball of the foot to the ball of the foot, heel of the foot to heel of the foot. Doesn't need to be 100% of effort pressing, but feel for using your feet's intelligence to reconnect. Send deep breaths into your hips and your low back in this pose. Go ahead and lay on your back for Baddha Konasana on the back. For this, pick up your feet and then bring your knees closer to your armpits, wrap your fingers around your feet, and then start to bring your feet towards your face or the center of your chest. Feel how having your feet connected in this way invites opening in your hips and in your back. If you can connect your elbows to your shins, so like an inner shin, feel for pressing the elbows forwards towards the shin to get a little gentle opening through the knees. And you'll feel that into your hips. At the same time, you may be hugging your hands towards the feet so the feet move closer to the chest. Shavasana. Go ahead and lengthen your legs out forwards. Palms face up or down, or can be anywhere along your body. Immediately bring your awareness down to your feet that have gotten so much attention. Feel for subtle pulsing or vibration, or your heartbeat in the very center of the soles of your feet. You may even get a sense that this little area in the center of the sole of your foot swirls in one direction, clockwise or counterclockwise. And if you cannot feel the pulsing, feel your ankles connected to the floor. Your heels connected to the floor. And as you breathe here in Shavasana, fascinate upon how long you can keep your awareness connected to just your feet. often heard the saying that sometimes we need to get out of our head and into our body. As an anatomy nerd, doesn't make sense to me because our head is part of our body. Sometimes I think we need to get out of our heads and into our feet. Bring your mental energy to your feet as if your feet could guide you forwards, not just your head. As your mind wants to flit away, use the sensations of your feet to anchor the fact that you are here right now. There's another saying within the yoga world to be right here, right now. I also don't think that is precise. You already are being right here, right now. You can't be anywhere else. But are you present to your being? Slowly start to move your feet and your toes, your ankles. Keep your hands totally still for this coming out of Shavasana. Start to bring motion further up your legs, maybe to your knee joints or your hips. Roll your knees onto one side. And then only once you have reached your side, then use your top arm to come into a fetal position. Stay connected to your feet as you slowly sit up. Almost like your feet could help guide the motion. Not your arms, not your neck. Okay, thank you so much for this practice.
Gracias.
You stay connected to your feet all day and for the rest of the month. And if not, for the rest of your life.
Yeah. When fin de semana? Oh wait, it's Tuesday.
You're the second person to tell me have a nice weekend coming out of yoga classes, and I'm like, what vibes am I giving off?
Well, yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, you're giving off positive vibes of
I'm
looking
giving off
forward.
Friday vibes.
Yeah, yeah. Every